My wife and I consider ourselves to be in the moderate category when it comes to the level of adventure in our travels. Spending 2 weeks riding through the Sahara on a camel with no shower would be too much for us. And we know some people who would consider staying outside the gates of their 5-star resort to be too adventurous, which we also think is ridiculous. I have now been to 77 countries, some of them quite adventurous if you ask me. But how adventurous was our experience in the Sahara region of Tunisia? Well, that is what I'll be discussing in this video, so be sure to watch to the end. My name is Ryan, my wife Emily and I are the Snail Travelers. So our adventure started just trying to get to the Sahara. We wanted to get from the coastal town of Monastir to the desert town of Tozeur. And according to Google Maps, it's about a 5.5-hour drive. But we don't like renting cars. I've only driven a car once in the past 7 years and don't want to start driving again where the driving is unfamiliar. We prefer to use the same transportation that Tunisian people often use because that is part of the adventure and it's a great way to interact with people. So we decided to go by Louage, which are shared taxis that go on set routes. But this made the 5.5-hour journey take 2 days because there is not a direct Louage between Monastir and Tozeur. We first had to go from Monastir to Sousa, then switch to another Louage to take us to Gabas, where we spent the night. Gabas isn't much of a tourist town and not much to do or see there. We were nervous about the next morning because we had asked 3 different people what time the Louage leaves to Tozeur, and we got 3 different answers. One said 6 a.m., another said 10 a.m., the third said between 6 a.m. and 9 a.m. We arrived at 8 a.m. and it all worked out. We found the Louage to Tozeur. By 8:40, enough people had arrived to fill up the van, and then we were on our way. So yeah, some people would say, wow, you're adventurous for using a Louage instead of taking an air-conditioned luxury tour van. And others would say, you're a wimp. If you were truly adventurous, you would have hitched a ride on a horse cart all the way from Tunis. But using the Louage was comfortable enough and just the right level of adventure for us. Once we arrived in Tozeur, we decided not to take a taxi to our Airbnb apartment, but instead take a half-hour walk through the beautiful town to get there. And we think that was a terrific decision because it gave the opportunity to be introduced to Tozeur's unique charm and ambience. We strolled through the archways and neighborhoods with houses made from sand-colored bricks forming various patterns, and we meandered through the souks with shopkeepers promoting their carpets and other products for sale. We truly felt like we had entered into an exotic world that is unlike anywhere else we have ever been on planet Earth. And we knew this was just the beginning of our adventures in the Tunisian desert. When we checked into our Airbnb, the first thing we noticed was the enormous size of the living room. I think the sofa could literally hold 10 people. The bathroom was interesting, with a very unique shaped bathtub, and the kitchen was also very large, about double the size of the kitchen in the apartment where we live, and one of the windows had a terrific view of a brick wall. Many travelers we know would say that this apartment would be unacceptable because it did have some flaws here and there, and for them, staying here would be quite adventurous, while others would say that we should stay in a Berber hut made out of palm trees in the middle of the desert to get a true sense of adventure. But we think the apartment where we stayed was the right balance for us to be comfortable. Our first experience in Tozeur was a visit to a beautiful date plantation called Eden Palm. It has a small museum that explains the details of growing dates in the desert. We took a tour of the plantation itself out amongst the towering date trees, saw the processing center where the dates are made into various products, and got to sample some of these products, everything from date chocolate, caramel, and coffee to cosmetics that are made from the oils and extracts. Unfortunately, we weren't there during the harvest season, so we didn't get to see too much activity, yet we still enjoyed our time. And the tour cost only 6 dinar, which is just under $2. There was nothing too adventurous about this visit, other than walking for about an hour to get there on some of the back roads and dirt paths outside of the city, and trying not to get lost while doing this. So yeah, a pretty tame experience overall. After our visit to the plantation, we went to eat lunch at a restaurant called Tisorios that serves traditional Tunisian food. I cannot pronounce the names of the food we got, so I'll write them on the screen. Emily's dish consisted of chicken, raisins, chickpeas, walnuts, and dates, and it's a dish that is popular in countries that surround Tunisia as well. I ordered a dish that is cooked inside a clay pot, and as soon as the waiter opened it up, I knew I was going to enjoy this meal. I'm not even sure what was in it other than chicken and also some kind of stew gravy. Now, was this the most adventurous thing we could have ordered on the menu? No, they did have camel on the menu, but our taste buds are not adventurous enough for that. So there are two main reasons why we wanted to come to this area of Tunisia. One was to experience the natural beauty of the desert, and here is a hint for the second reason we wanted to come to Tozeur.
Let me guess. You like Star Wars.
We like Star Wars too, and it turns out that many of the scenes from the movies were filmed here. We used a tour company called Sahara Sky to take the three of us, me, Emily, and Chewbacca. The price was $90 per person, but there was no extra charge for Chewbacca. Our first stop was the location of the Lars homestead from Star Wars Episode 4. The igloo-type structure is still there, and even the futuristic lock mechanism is still there, but we couldn't go inside because it was flooded with water from the lake. We enjoyed coming here, although there wasn't anything adventurous about it, other than having to walk through the mud for about 10 minutes to get there. The site is actually located in the lake, although this part of the lake was in the process of drying up when we were there, and when the lake is full, this site is submerged underwater. Our next stop was Mos Espa from Star Wars Episode 1. We first went up one of the sand dunes across from the movie set to get a panoramic view, and then we headed into the fictional village to explore what is left. Much of the movie set is now occupied by souvenir vendors, but some of the areas in the back are empty and fun to explore. It was interesting to discover that this entire village is actually made out of a thin papier-mâché type substance. It's not solid, very flimsy, and starting to disintegrate. We decided not to buy any souvenirs, not to dress up in Star Wars costumes that you could rent, and not to take the camel rides that are available, but tried instead to imagine what it would be like to live in a place like this, if it was a real place, of course. Next, we headed to Ong Jamel, which is the rock sticking up out of the dirt that is supposed to look like a camel head. You've heard the phrase, "the pictures don't do it justice." Well, this was the opposite of that, in my opinion. Nothing too spectacular. Next, we went to a canyon that was used in the Obi-Wan Kenobi scene in Episode 4. Quite a beautiful canyon indeed, breathtaking actually. It would have been even more fun if we had seen some of the sand people pop out in their gowns from behind the rocks and from inside the caves to come and kidnap R2-D2 and C-3PO. Okay, enough about Star Wars, at least for this video, but we'll have more in our next video. May the Force be with you. Let's move on to some more natural beauty, starting at Chabika, where we did just a little bit of non-adventurous hiking and made our way down to a small but very scenic waterfall that seems to appear out of nowhere since it's in the middle of the desert where it doesn't rain much. We also visited spectacular Midas Canyon with stunning views in all directions. And then made our way to Tamagaza Waterfall, again not the biggest waterfall in the world, but in a stunning location at the base of the Desert Canyon cliffs. We ended our tour here, and there wasn't anything too adventurous about this tour, but that is because we had our excellent guide Mustafa with us. Doing this on our own would have definitely been too adventurous for us, especially when it comes to finding these places that weren't easy to get to, and driving on sandy and muddy tracks that aren't marked on any map. But what do you think? Would this experience be too adventurous for you? Or do you think we are wimps for not roughing it more? Let me know in the comments below. We have more videos from Tunisia coming, so hit that subscribe button. Here is our previous video from Monastir, and I'll put our next video from Tunisia down here when it's ready. Thanks for traveling with us.